Thank you guys for coming out. As you can see, sometimes, especially when we're talking about the topic of substance abuse, we don't exactly fill chairs. A little bit more of a taboo topic. In some cases, might be a topic that's uncomfortable to talk about, or maybe people would hope isn't as big of an issue as unfortunately we see that it is. What my goal is for today is really to address some of the stuff that we've been seeing more locally, more prominently. So this isn't going to be a crash course to every substance that there is. I'm not going to be talking about effects, what things look like, although there are going to be some graphics so you can help to get a little bit of a visual. But this is going to be more about some of the problematic pieces that we're seeing and how we're seeing it manifest in our kids. So just a little bit about myself, all the crazy letters after my name. I'm a licensed professional counselor, a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, and I'm an approved clinical supervisor. So for those that are looking to enter into this field, training these individuals as they come in. I do trainings at high school, spoken at a couple seminars, a lot of stuff that's local, a lot of stuff that's on the state level, and that's really it. This is really the heart of what I do. A lot of the information, especially when it comes to this particular presentation, is more focused on what's going on in our community. What's going on in our community may be very, very different than what's going on in South Jersey. So this particular presentation wouldn't be appropriate there. So please do understand this is really reflective of what I'm seeing with my clients in my practice, as well as what I am seeing as a director of our agency, which is just in Florham Park, a town over. So what we're going to notice with a lot of things with the trends is that it's not necessarily new stuff. It's just how these old school traditions are being used in different ways. Some of it may have, be a little creative things that we may have heard of, maybe we have experimented with from time to time, even in our youth. But the way that these things are coming up more and more is a little bit concerning. I'm going to try this other button. No? All right. So I'm just going to put this down. Okay. So particularly for when it comes to marijuana, we're not just talking about kids rolling joints or smoking blunts. We're talking about new, little bit more sophisticated ways of using this substance. So we're talking about vaporizers, we're talking about oils and waxes. Now, vaporizers aren't exactly a new thing. They've been around for quite some time. Willie Nelson has spoken publicly about his use of vaporizers for years. Technically speaking, it's the smarter way to use pot. So in general, when we talk about using marijuana or even smoking cigarettes, the big public health concern that we tend to focus on there is what it's doing to our lungs. So when you're lighting a substance on fire, you're combusting a substance. You're taking a product that maybe has 40 somewhat chemicals in it, and once you light it on fire, you're now inhaling somewhere to the tune of between 300 and 400 somewhat chemicals that are coming in. So there's a synergistic effect that happens with the chemicals when you light it on fire. You take away all of that stuff that it can do to your lungs simply by using a vaporizer. You're not letting it on fire. You're just making it very, very hot, and you are running air through it, and then you are inhaling the air that comes out of it. So there's still going to be not a smoke that you are inhaling or exhaling. It's a vapor. So the delivery system is still there, but you're taking out some of the medical effects. It's not changing what it's doing to your brain. You're still getting high. You're still having some of those neural responses that are going on there. So when it comes to brain development and how marijuana can affect brain development in an adolescent or young adult that's using it, that's not being changed. What we're talking about in regards to why it's smarter to use marijuana through a vaporizer is you're not doing all that damage to your lungs. So this is a little bit of a primitive type of device. This thing's been around for quite some time. There's a lot more fancier devices that are out there. Has anyone heard of that movie called Super Size Me? It was a documentary about public health when it comes to eating. Several years back, they did not a mock of it, just a different take on it called Super High Me. There's a comedian, Doug Benson, who is very, very pro-marijuana, and he's very loud about being very pro-marijuana. So he did an experiment where he cut 30 days of abstinence and did medical checkups and so on and so forth and got various different opinions, medically as well as socially, and then he documented himself getting high, crazy high, and then was again going back to the medical appointment. But in this movie, he's got quite a number of fun, innovative ways that he's using marijuana, some of which are vaporizers. One of the more popular ones that are larger devices is something called a volcano. Because the device looks like a volcano, and you put a plastic bag on top of it, you fill up the plastic bag with a vapor, and then you just inhale it. and that's it. However, some of the other devices that are being used when it comes to vaporizers are a little bit more discreet. They are called vaporizer pens. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. That's going to come up in a later slide. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's this thing that kind of looks like a light bulb with a little device that's going through it. You can actually buy this type of product at a head shop or a smoke shop. If you, let's say, it's prom season, so if you go down to the shore, maybe with Seaside, maybe it's about like every 50 or 100 feet, you will find a shop that has a lot of decorative glass items that are for using tobacco. No, it's not. But this is a particular device where it's intended to be a vaporizer, not for marijuana, but for waxes or for oils that have marijuana in it. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So this lower product here is an actual wax, marijuana wax, and you'll see this little tool kind of looks like a dental scraper. If you were to take the gunk off of it, it looks like the thing your dentist scrapes your teeth with while he's cleaning you. So the scraper has a little bit of wax on it. That much wax, if there's any fingernail biters in here, kind of like the size of a fingernail clipping, that much marijuana wax will get a kid basically 10 times higher than what they're used to getting off of just smoking conventional marijuana. So we're talking about a much more sophisticated product. It doesn't take so much to make this at home. A lot of times, how our kids are finding out about this, if it's not through their friends directly, you can just go to YouTube, you know? So when I hear this from my kids are my clients, I then go to YouTube and let's learn more. And I will be told directly how to make this stuff. It's not so hard to come across. And if a person has access to a marijuana, everything else that it takes is already in your home. So it's there. Next slide, please. Really? Oh, you got me excited now. All right. So a little bit earlier, I had mentioned the vaporizer pens. This graphic right over here is really talking about the vaporizer pens. They, oddly enough, kind of look like the electronic cigarettes. Now with electronic cigarettes, there's various different types. There's vapor cartridges, and then there's oil rigs, or oil cartridges. The vapor cartridges, it's a product maybe you find at like a 7-Eleven, a local convenience store. They probably have it right on the counter with all of these delicious flavors. Raspberry double bubble, tobacco flavored. I can't exactly read that one. It has a number 4 at the end. Strawberry, mango, peach, watermelon. We're not marketing towards children because that would be completely illegal. We just offer lots of different flavors for how you want to use tobacco. Or it's not tobacco, but similar related products. When these were initially developed, they were developed as a way for a person that's trying to quit smoking to use a harm reduction method while they're trying to quit smoking. So if a person is smoking cigarettes, and let's go back, let's say 10 years ago, the patch, the gum, we're familiar with these products to help a person stop smoking. So with the patches, there was a 21 milligram patch, and then after a couple of weeks, a person could step down to 14, continue, step down to 7, and eventually try without. The gum, it was the same milligram dosage. However, you could just kind of space out, like maybe in a day I chew 8 pieces, and then a couple weeks later 7, you kind of scale down like that. With these electronic cigarettes, it's a similar type setup. With the refill cartridges, you can step down in nicotine level. With the oil-based products, you can do the same thing. You can step down in concentration of nicotine with the oils. Even if a person doesn't have an intent on quitting, they just really enjoy the act of it, they can go about it with the harm reduction approach. So they still maintain the level of nicotine that they take in. However, you're not combusting a substance, you're not introducing those carcinogens into the lungs. The problem that we see with this when it comes to the electronic cigarettes, when we're talking about how it could be used with marijuana, is you can make marijuana oil at home. So with the type of electronic cigarette that is an oil cartridge, when you go to refill the oil, you simply don't refill the oil with the product that you buy at the store. You can refill the oil with homemade pot oil, which is the lower left graphic, or you can actually order some of this stuff online, especially with some of the legalization statuses in various other states. Technically is illegal to do that, but it's still done. In another presentation, I actually have a couple of graphics of some very well-sold products that are marijuana-infused oils. And they're fancy oils, too. Like, we're talking like truffle butter type stuff. Some of this stuff is really, really expensive. And there's a market for it, which is telling us something. If there's a market for it and they're coming up with different varieties and flavors, it's popular. People are purchasing this product. This is a very discreet way to use this product, especially if you are infusing some of the flavored oils in with the marijuana oil. When you're smoking it, you're not getting the scent of marijuana, so you can smoke it very, very discreetly and not have any idea, or not have people around you have any idea that you're using that product, unless you're telling them. On the right-hand side is just an example of a kit. So you can purchase this product. Again, you can purchase it online. You can purchase it at a smoke shop or a head shop. So the basics here, we have the actual electronic cigarette, or the oil rig, so to speak. You've got the wall adapter. That's how it charges. You just plug in the device at the very tip. You put your product inside of it, whether it be an oil or a wax. You push the button. You give it a couple of seconds, wait for the heating element to do what it has to do, and then you simply just inhale from the mouthpiece here. That's it. You just put in whatever product you want, whatever oil or whatever wax-based product. And again, for the individuals that are using the wax-based products, they give you containers to put your waxes in, and they give you a scraping device to scrape whatever amount you want to put inside of it. There you go. It's all in one kit. Let me try this. No. All right. Let me just click on the next slide. All right. I have to do that. So this is a rather popular product, the G Pen or the Micro G. So the previous slide that I was just referencing before, this is just another variation. This one actually comes with two of the electronic cigarette type devices, and the scraper mechanism looks a little bit different. It's the same exact kit though. So there we go. With marijuana, we're also seeing the kids using a lot more edible-based products. Now think of, when you're thinking of you can make marijuana oil or purchase marijuana oil, think of any type of baked good that you would make with an oil. Cookies, brownies, cakes, etc. You're thinking about some of these shops that they have that are now a little bit more renowned in Colorado, for example, or the big craze in Amsterdam, so on and so forth. All these type of products, these baked goods. Here we go. But in addition to that, we now have other ways to make marijuana infused candies. So, for example, I know Jolly Ranchers were something that were big in the past year and a half, 2 years. And again, there's ways that you can make this stuff at home. Just Google it. Sorry, YouTube it. You will actually get videos walking you through the process. Not to say that this is something that we would want to do, but just understanding the accessibility that our kids have to some of this stuff. How am I learning about it? I'm not fervently searching the internet. I'm coming across it from the clients that I'm working with. And, let's try this out. I'm researching it. I'm pulling up the graphics, so on and so forth. Moving on to alcohol, it's not just drinking. Not just going to a party, having a beer, having a drink, so on and so forth. Various other ways to use alcohol in other products. Drunk gummies is something that's been around forever. It's just something we've been seeing coming up a little bit more, whereas it hasn't necessarily been there in the past. You take your favorite gummy product, you get a container, you get your alcohol of choice. Usually it's a type of vodka or a rum. Insert whatever flavor you want. You put some of the alcohol into the container of gummies, you stir it around a little bit, in the fridge for 12 hours, come back out, pour a little bit more, stir a little bit more, put it back. You do this about 3 or 4 times, and these gummy bears are going to get nice and plump. In my opinion, these products are going to smell. I know that some individuals have a hard time smelling vodka. I've never had a hard time smelling vodka when a person's under the influence of alcohol. But when we take a look at snacks, gummy bears are a little bit innocent. It's a candy. If a kid's going to snack on something, they're going to snack on something. But when I take a look at how an adolescent is going to consume this type of product, I know when I eat gummy bears, I'm not having 1 or 2. I'm having like a handful of gummy bears and I'm eating them. And so from our kids' experiences, Popping a few gummies is like taking a few shots. So if one gummy bear, they're equating to a shot of alcohol. I don't know the science on that or whatever. And this is an adolescent, so we're talking about impulse control. Are they consuming just 1 or 2 gummy bears? My thought would be probably not. And so that's a consideration when we take a look at likelihood for overusing a product and the potential for overdose, and you take a look at alcohol hitting your system. So another consideration that's there. There we go. Products. We have men's products, we have women's products. Has anyone ever seen or heard of this product, the BeerBelly? So there's the BeerBelly. There's also, I don't know the name of this product. I don't necessarily want to know the name of this product, but it's a similar type product that's a pouch that goes right over here. So again, when these products were first developed, they were initially brought on and marketed as a way to go to sporting events, go to things at a major venue and not pay the stadium price for an alcoholic beverage. How much does a beer cost at like a baseball game, a football game, so on and so, like what, $8, maybe if it's another type of drink in a specialty cup, like $12, $16, who knows. You can simply fill up your product at home, put it under a sweatshirt, nobody's going to know any different. They don't strip search you when you walk into a stadium. And there you go. You can consume your beverage without having to pay the stadium prices. When we take a look at how these type of products can be misused by kids, bringing these products into sporting events. And then even with this one, for guys, it has a little bit of a comic appeal because literally in order to use the product, you need to unzip your pants, take out the nozzle, and so it's like making fun of urinating. So there you go. It's a different way to use the product. I personally haven't come across this with one of my kids, but I have come across this with several of my adolescent girls. Has anyone ever heard of the wine rack? So the wine rack is a very, very similar type product designed for a woman, designed as a sports bra, that you simply just pour the wine or realistically your alcohol of choice inside of this bra device. And yeah, there's a little hose. So if you're going to a sporting event, if you have a sweatshirt on, it's very, very discreet. You just kind of pull it up, drink a little bit, put it back down, and that's that. The difficulty is it's not necessarily wine that individuals are putting into these products. On the former slide, it doesn't necessarily have to be beer that a person is putting into these products. When we take a look at the abuse potential for adolescents, more often than not, and this is actually from 2013, a statistic that was pulled by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, when it comes to alcohol use in minors, is that 90% of use from adolescents aged 12 through 20, so just under the legal age for basically all the country, 90% of that alcohol use is in binge drinking episodes. So in episodes when an adolescent is drinking more than 5 alcoholic beverages in one sitting. So we know, statistically speaking, that when adolescents are drinking, they're not normally socially drinking. More often than not, they're drinking for the effect of the substance. They're drinking to get drunk. So the abuse potential for these type of products. And then this slide over on the right, this is something that I found in a store. This is my hand that's holding the product. I found this at Spencer's. So they're little test tube shots, flasks that are disguised as tampons. Very, very innocent product. It would be completely understandable why a woman would have this on her. I don't think a person would question it if there's like bag checks at a stadium type of event. So I don't know about you, or the last time that you may have walked into a Spencer's, but whenever I'm at a Spencer's to get a gag gift for someone, I see lots of, what? Middle schoolers and high schoolers running around the entire place. And this isn't something that's discreet and like hidden in the back. Like this is just on one of those peg things that's on the wall. There you go. So we talk about accessibility, but it's $12. Come on. Okay. This is something that I've been keeping an eye on for quite some time. It was initially banned before it hit the shelves because of the abuse potential that was there. So Palcohol is a powdered alcohol. So you simply just have to get your mixer of choice. If it's a juice, a soda, whatever it is, pour the powder in, give it a nice little shake, and the chemical reaction that it's going to have is going to expand out the alcohol molecules. And so when you drink it, you're drinking an alcoholic beverage. Like it's going to come up as alcohol on a urinalysis. It's not an altered or a synthetic type product. It's alcohol, just how they're packaging it is a little bit different. They're obviously doing something to it to make it alcohol. I'm not a chemist, don't ask me this stuff. This was something that, again, it was banned before it hit the shelves. One of the big reasons I personally believe for this, and this part is just speculation, again, this is a powdered alcohol product. When you are orally consuming a product, it takes longer to digest and to get into your system. Usually it takes about like 20 minutes to a half hour for something to start having an effect when you're taking something and digesting it. The kids that I'm working with that are a little bit more intensive, that have more high-risk features, something that's powdered, they might not just be mixing it in a drink, they might be snorting this product. So think about quick access delivery into the body. That could be pretty dangerous, and I would venture to say possibly lethal. This is something that within the past couple of months has been revisited again. I actually saw a couple of articles come up. I saw it wasn't CNN, it was another national news company, actually have an interview with one of the individuals that was responsible for creating and marketing this product, really trying to work with the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, to make this product okay for shelves. So this is something, it's not done yet, it's not on shelves yet, it's still in the mix. This is something that they've been trying to get out for about 2 years now. So it's not here yet, it's in the mix. And again, consider the abuse potential that it might have. And then of course, when all else fails and you run out of creativity, just grab a water bottle. So conversation between kids within a group, it's not like it's so hard to do, you just bring a bottle of water into school, nobody thinks of anything of it. Followed by, but you have to do it right. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll drink it real quick and you'll make an ass out of yourself. That's how you get caught. It's okay. So we have a little bit of an understanding of ways to use alcohol in school and try to do it discreetly. So especially if we're bringing in water bottles. I know sometimes when it comes to sporting events, I don't believe schools necessarily have policies when it comes to like proms or anything like that. But I do know sometimes there's door checks for some of this stuff. If a person has an open water bottle, it needs to be put aside. I don't know the specific policy for every single school district. I can't tell you Chatham's policy. But again, this is something that could come up. A couple of weeks ago at our agency, we were tasked where we have a statewide inspection coming up, really just making sure we're up to snuff. And one of the questions that we were asked, and it's really a critical thinking question, is, okay, take your team and walk throughout your facility and identify, if I was suicidal, how can I do it in here? What was the entire purpose of that, is to really walk around and identify what are the possible ways that if a person had a desire to, that they could fulfill that action. Think about this when it comes to this. If I really, really, really wanted to drink, how could I do it and possibly have no way of getting detected whatsoever? You think about it, and you think about it for a little bit, you can come up with lots of creative ways. So it's not just for using alcohol, it could also be for using other substances too. Not saying that this is what our children are doing, but you can take a look at how some of this stuff really comes up when it comes to the gummies, when it comes to these various different products, when it comes to just simply using a water bottle. If I really wanted to do something, how do I go about doing it and not getting caught? You know? Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about some harder stuff. So Molly, MDMA, ecstasy, I'm hoping that people are familiar with this name or these names, really talking about what's basically the same product. And I want to give a quick crash course education, but first I'm going to ask for some recognition. Whoop, I just hit another. Do we know who this is? Miley Cyrus, how about that? Kanye West. And then we got Madonna, Rihanna, Lil Wayne, Lady Gaga. All right. The one thing, well, not just one, but one thing that all of these individuals have in common is that they are top 40 pop artists. They are there on charts. They have Media influence. Some have been identified as role models at some point in time in their lives. These are individuals that are in majority of our kids' iPods, iPhones, music media of choice. This is stuff that our kids are listening to. Another thing that all these artists have in common is in some way, shape, or form, whether it be in their music, in public interviews, or at concerts, have promoted the use of Molly. So I forget the exact lyric. We like to party, dancing with Molly, whatever the rest of the song goes. So she's referencing it there. Madonna had opened a concert simply by asking, has anyone seen Molly? And everyone goes crazy. Lil Wayne, he references many, many substances. Molly just happens to be one of them in his songs. And then Lady Gaga and Rihanna have spoken openly just about their use of Molly, and that it was a positive experience. It's a party thing. It's not something that's done all the time, etc. But the general gist that we're getting is we're talking about something and not identifying some of the risks that come with it. And in some cases, talking about this product very, very lightly. So in hearing about this, well, you know what? This is something where these people are okay. They're obviously quite successful, and they've had positive experiences with this. I can understand that maybe there's some risk associated with it, but it can't be so horrible. So to use it recreationally might not be so problematic. Look at the message that can come across with even just seeing or hearing these individuals make reference to recreational use of this particular product. Just understanding how we've come to this particular product. Back in 1914, MDMA, which is methylene dioxymethamphetamine, was actually developed by Merck, a regular old pharmaceutical company. It was developed in Germany. It was initially created as a way to try to work towards chemical warfare. They very, very quickly realized it's not doing what we want it to do. Let's table that. We're not going to touch that. And that's kind of what happened for quite some time. It was revisited here and there. It was kept in the closet because it didn't have any particular uses for any period of time. However, we started to really see this resurface back in the 1960s in therapy, oddly enough. California is like the originator of a lot of different like new age type of ways to go about doing things. So when we take a look at some of the new things that get tried, a lot of stuff tends to boom over there. This actually was picked up in New York also, but not just there, but the big places that we started to see this. It was actually used in therapy, particularly in marital or couples therapy or counseling. The rationale for this, especially when individuals are at a place where it's difficult for them to communicate on an emotional level, people are running into barriers or walls with some of this stuff. It was difficult to break through that. So some medication-assisted treatment was prescribed from time to time. So you would go to the office, you would take your dose of your medication, you would wait for a half hour, if you were consuming a product orally, about the time that it takes to start to have an effect, and then you would start your session. And there's actual documented, really, really powerful, strong outcomes from this. The only problem with it is that afterwards, we have some cases where there's some negative outcomes, not relationally, but when it comes to depression and anxiety in the individuals that were taking this particular medication. We talk about the phrase Blue Mondays or Suicide Tuesdays. If you're taking a dose on Friday, you're going to get your serotonin crash on Monday. If you're taking your dose on Saturday, you're going to get your serotonin crash on Tuesday. So taking this particular drug for therapeutic use very easily translated to recreational use just because of how it makes you feel. And we were starting to see some negative effects from that. So in 1985, the DEA promoted MDMA to a DEA Schedule I classification of drug, which means absolutely zero purpose in the U.S. whatsoever, completely illegal, no medical purpose, nothing. That still doesn't mean that people, stopped creating this product. So we have the clandestine laboratories, the raves, so on and so forth. Eventually, this product was no longer a pure product. It's being cut and mixed with various other things. Eventually, over a period of time, ecstasy, MDMA, got a bad rap. If you ask some kids what they know about ecstasy, isn't that thing that puts holes in your brain? It doesn't actually put holes in your brain. It actually creates gray matter. So it takes a lot of time to regenerate. So non-functional brain space is eventually what it ends up creating. However, when you ask a kid about Molly, you'll get some references, whether it be from media, what they may hear from friends, or maybe they just don't know so much about it, but, oh, I've heard about it because of some of the media references, but they don't have the stigma that's attached to it. For the most part, it's the same exact product. They just manipulated the chemical structure a little bit. So they remarketed, they rebranded, and it's out. So with ecstasy, these are some very, very few examples as to what some of these pills look like. Majority of them are going to have stamps on them, which are some of the insignias that you're seeing. All of these stamps that are here, as well as a majority of others, some type of product that is out there. So we have VW for Volkswagens. We have the Lacoste crocodile. There's Sky, which they're missing a K, but I believe that's a vodka. Isn't the vodka SKKY or SKYY? Something like that. There's lots of other ones. There's ones that reference cartoon characters. There's ones that reference fashion icons, whether it be Coach or Gucci, like some of those insignias. So again, what is it being marketed towards? A lot of the Molly-based products aren't necessarily pills or tablets like this. They can be crystallized products that may be put into a capsule. And you simply just take apart the capsule, and then you can use this product in a variety of different ways. You can swallow it, you can rub it on your gums, you can rub it on your tongue, you can snort it. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can use Molly. Some people smoke it, but there you go. So this is how we've kind of morphed with this. When it comes to prescription pain medications, this ranges a very, very wide array of medications. So we have stimulant-based medications that are used for study aids. We have pain relievers, which is a major problem that we've been experiencing recently, especially when it comes to the introduction to heroin, which I'm going to be hitting on in just a couple slides. And then we have sedatives. So anxiety, or medications that are used to treat anxiety, things that are going to dull down the senses. So a statistic, 1 out of 5 Americans uses a prescription drug for non-medical reasons. I just want to qualify this stat real quick. This can mean many, many different things, and sometimes we get very, very scared by statistics. Something to be very, very aware of here is that on one end, this can mean the kid that's going through grandma's medicine cabinet and what do I think I can get high from. On the other end, this could mean, I'll give an example of a client I worked with privately. Had a history of anxiety and panic disorder, 0 personal history, 0 family history of addiction, alcoholism, anything along those lines. Very, very significant anxiety and panic history for this particular client, and also for his mother. The mother had her own prescription of Xanax. This adolescent who did not have a prescription for Xanax was going into a panic episode. It was like 2 in the morning. He woke up from a nightmare. The mom didn't know what to do. She reached for her medication, which she uses for panic, gave it to her child. Would I do anything different? No, I would probably do the same exact thing in that particular state. Was this kid abusing or misusing that medication? It was not his script. Legally speaking, correct. That is a misuse of medication. So I want to qualify and kind of give perspective as to exactly what they're referencing with this stat. So we're talking 20% of American population either are using a substance to try to get high from it, or they're just using a medication for a valid condition they're just simply not prescribed to. So there's some back and forth with this one. In regards to understanding what this stuff looks like, which I personally believe is very, very important, a lot of times we can hear some dialogue, or if we're not hearing it, reading dialogue through text messages, emails, Snapchats, like other communications that our kids are using. But we don't necessarily know what it is, what it looks like, what the nicknames are. So when it comes to Adderall, in most cases, Adderall is a pull-apart capsule. Adderall is usually prescribed to individuals that have a diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, whether they're hyperactive or impulsive. No matter, this is one of those particular medications. It's an amphetamine, it's a stimulant. In regards to how this is usually used, is for, aside from the person that has a legitimate prescription, for college students this time of year, finals week, midterms, finals, big tests, things that they need to pull an all-nighter for. This is something that's going to help give them an edge to pull that all-nighter to be able to study. Really, really helps out with focus and concentration. Obviously, it's prescribed for individuals that have difficulty with focus and concentration. However, we also see Adderall and the similar type of prescriptions used in conjunction with alcohol. I can stay up later throughout the course of the night, and I can drink more throughout the course of the night because I'm not going to be falling asleep when I kind of hit that threshold with alcohol. The difficulty with this is, so we have a stimulant, an upper in the body, we're mixing with a depressant. It's doing all sorts of crazy stuff to the heart that's just not helping. This here is Xanax. So Xanax is a benzodiazepine, which is usually prescribed for individuals that have chronic anxiety or panic disorder, and it comes in various different dosage. 0.5 milligrams, 0.25, 0.5, 1 milligram, and then I know on the bottom here, this is a 2 milligram. They call them bars or sticks. So knowing some of the terminology behind this can also be important. I know I skipped over for Adderall, they're usually called Addies. There might be some other terminology, but Addies is what I hear the most. So with Xanax, whether it's taken orally or crushed up and snorted, both of which tend to be methods of choice, very, very rarely do I hear kids using them in other ways. This can be used just in and of itself for the effect of getting high, so as a sedative. This, in combination with alcohol, can be lethal. You have two CNS depressants going in at the same time, which happen to have a synergistic effect. Synergy means 1 + 1 does not equal 2, 1 + 1 = 8. So if you are combining any two downers together, you are risking respiratory depression. That means your breathing rate goes down and you die from you're not breathing anymore. So any two downers. So alcohol and Xanax, alcohol and Valium, which is another one, alcohol and Klonopin, which is another sedative, alcohol and a pain medication, which I'll go over really quick, or a benzodiazepine, a downer, and a pain medication. Any combination of two downers, you're going to risk respiratory depression. I know particularly for this district, there was a few very, very isolated incidents where this was a consideration, a concern that was in there. Thankfully, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't had a death this year from this. On the right-hand side of the slide, this is where we have the opiate painkillers. So in the upper graphic, this is an oxycodone, and you see the indication is 30. So 30 milligram dosage. So this is a very, very popular pill. They call them Oxy, Roxy, Blues. There's various other nicknames for this. Unfortunately, this is what we tend to see coming up more often than not. If individuals aren't using oxycodone, they may be using OxyContin, which is, again, a little bit of a variation. It's a chemical cousin. They come in a wide range of dosages from 10, 20, 40, 80 to 160 milligrams. So we're talking about how an individual might get to a place where they're at risk of graduating onto something like heroin, because again, they're all chemical cousins, they're all opiates. Let's talk about routes of administration of a substance into the body. So there is nasal use of something, there's smoking a substance, there's intravenous use of a substance, and there's taking a substance orally. The most common, least invasive least invasive use of a medication of any kind is taking something orally. We do this when we're young. If you have a headache, you take a Tylenol, so on and so forth. It's something that we are familiar with. I take vitamins. I know children take vitamins. It's something that we're just used to. You could take a pill and that's okay. It's something that's prescribed by somebody. It's okay. However, these substances, once you develop a tolerance to them, can get quite costly. Street value for one of these pills on the right can be somewhere between $25 and $30, depending on your socioeconomic, like where you're located, basically. In some cases where it's a little bit more difficult, they might go for $20. But we're talking $20 to $30. Let's just make the average of $25. So if a person is starting to develop a tolerance, and let's say they're using 4 over the course of a week, that's $100 a week that's going to this. What high schooler do you know can afford $100 a week? I don't know high schoolers that can afford $100 a week. I know high schoolers that are using this much or more. So we then take a look at what are some of the behaviors that are accompanying the substance use to help support the use. Some of that can be rather unsavory. We don't need to dive down that road. But again, once tolerance continues to ramp up, we now can rationalize why it might be more efficient to use the product in a different way. So if I crush up this pill and snort it, I can use a little bit less of it and still get a little bit of a higher effect. So now I'm ramping up my tolerance, but I'm using less of the product, so in the end, I'm spending less money until tolerance continues to progress. At a certain point in time, using heroin isn't that far of a stretch. If you're snorting a product, you're snorting a product. Heroin has a lot more bang for the buck than an opiate prescribed medication. And then once a person makes that switch over to heroin, not everyone is going to go to a needle. But again, once we get to that point where if a person is using multiple bags of heroin in a day, at what point does it just become economically responsible to switch over? This is a very, very cheap product. If a person's buying in bulk, the cost per bag can be anywhere between $5 to $7, which is cheaper than a bag of marijuana. And we're talking about like understanding exactly what this means for our kids. However, unfortunately, I'm not going to berate you guys with all the news that we've been experiencing in New Jersey. Kids are dying. We now have legislation trying to protect individuals so that if people are using and if a person is at risk of overdose and a friend wants to give a call, everyone in that incident is protected. The entire point is to save that person's life if they're at risk of overdose. If you are unfamiliar with these laws and you want to know a little bit more, talk to me afterwards, or you can go online. Just type in New Jersey overdose laws. You'll get lots of literature on all this stuff. But this is an example. This is a picture that a parent had sent in regards to what they were finding when searching through a room. So we have hypodermic needles. We have a cook-up spoon. We have a couple of balloon ties that are filled with heroin. So a person just taking, it's like your standard balloon, filling some heroin, tying it off, and then snipping off the rest. This is a classic stamp bag. It's like a waxy bag. And again, when I say the word stamp, it has like a logo of some kind. We have Prada here, a fashion label. And then this, for me, this kind of looks like a pop bag, but this is not. What was in there was heroin. And it's a sports icon that's listed on the bag. So again, we have some marketing that's associated with some of this stuff. But this is what we're running into. Important information, know the substances by name, and if you're unfamiliar with the street names, try to get familiar with them. Some of this stuff can come up in conversations and we just simply don't know because we're not familiar. If a pill is found that is unidentifiable, look it up. Go on to Google and type in the description of the pill. Round white pill, if there's like letters, a score, and then numbers, you can type in all of that stuff and it will pull you up exactly what the product is and what the dosage is. So know exactly what it is. I always suggest to err on the side of caution. If you don't know, just ask, reach out for resources. I know those two student assistance counselors have had some familiarity with this stuff, and if they don't, they're usually calling me, what's this? And there we go, we have this dialogue and conversation. Educating others about other ways to dispose of some of these prescription medications, because we get these things for legitimate reasons. If there's surgeries or whatnot, if there's chronic pain issues, we have some of these things. However, if these products are unused in the home and you have adolescents in the home, if you're no longer using the products, there isn't a need to have them. It's safer just to get them out of the home. I know in some towns, the police departments actually have safety drop-off stations. A lot of pharmacies do this. Sometimes local communities will arrange, whether it's quarterly or once every so many months, they will arrange a safe disposal pickup point. So it's ways to just kind of routinely, like, okay, spring cleaning, let's just kind of go through, haven't used this in a while, don't need it, I can get it out. There we go. I talked about erring on the side of caution. Becoming familiar with some signs and symptoms. There we go. I'm going to talk very, very briefly about research chemicals. This is the stuff that we can't test for. This is the stuff that we don't have so much information on because they're constantly developing more and more products. This is, again, a product that I took a picture of, something that was confiscated and brought into our facility. One of the fun things about this is it's not FDA approved, but it is sold over the counter. So these products are classically known for saying that it is not for human consumption, So don't use it, but it's not to be sold to anyone under 18 years old. So these things are marketed as incense. You can burn them and they have a nice fragrant smell to them. A majority of them too do have that, but they are not to be consumed, so it's not to be smoked, and no one under the age of 18 can have them. Really? So what exactly is this product? So they're basically taking away their liability here on both of these items. So we're not responsible for minors taking this because we have it Stanford on there, and we are not responsible for anything that can happen to you if you use this product for your own personal consumption in any way. So there we go. That's fun. One of the difficulties that we have with that is we see a wide range of reactions that not just our kids, but anyone using these products can have. Back in 2007, when I really first started to see this stuff come up, we weren't, again, there was no testing for this stuff at that time. We were just becoming aware of what was going on in the subculture. So what we were seeing was the emergency room visits from individuals that had brief psychotic episodes, random episodes of vomiting, crying spells, just very, very wide, like what's going on type of reactions. And a lot of this stuff the parents were seeing at home over the weekends, and they were like, I don't know what's going on. They were bringing their kids to the emergency rooms. And then eventually, the truth comes out in the end, and we get a little bit more education as to what was kind of going on in the background. So we now have an understanding to the various different categories that they're making synthetic drugs in. So there's synthetic psychedelics, synthetic cannabinoids, marijuana, synthetic dissociatives, sedatives, and stimulants. And you can see within each one there's different families of drugs that there are. I will be upfront with you. This is a very outdated slide. I've used this slide in this presentation for 2 years now. God knows what else is on this list. A lot of times, especially with the synthetic cannabinoids, when we were seeing all these various different reactions that were going on, what the DEA had done at a certain point was they put an emergency Schedule 1 on a drug, which for them means we don't exactly know what this is. We don't have any medical basis to make it a Schedule 1 completely legal drug, but we think it's dangerous, so we're going to make it emergency Schedule 1 right now until we figure out what's going on here. To understand a little bit of the background of what they were doing, I'm going to skip this one for a second and go back to it, because this started off with synthetic marijuana. Politically speaking, we've been starting to see this play out in the last couple of years, because understand, back in 2007 is when we were seeing this. Marijuana was not legal in any state back in 2007. It was just some of the talks of the political movement that's going on there. So basically, the individuals that were very, very pro-marijuana were really trying to take a look at specifically what makes marijuana illegal. This particular compound, delta-9 THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. Okay, so we're going to take marijuana, we're going to manipulate the molecular structure, and we are then going to sell this product. It no longer has that compound, that chemical, delta-9 THC, so you can't make it illegal. That's what they did. And then emergency Schedule 1 happened. Okay, manipulate the chemical structure again. So it was a cat and mouse game. By time we were seeing stuff going on with one and they were trying to identify and target that, they've already made a number of more products, which is why we get to this that's going on in here. For a period of time, we started to see this stuff die down. It wasn't as present. I believe it wasn't as present specifically because, I'm bringing out the phone because I can bring up an article on this in just a second. I believe it wasn't present because of what the kids were experiencing from it. A lot of kids were having a lot of negative reactions based on using these type products. However, and this is from an article that came out earlier this week from the Associated Press. Poison control centers nationwide reported 359 cases in January of illnesses from synthetic cannabinoids, which mimic the effects of the main psychoactive ingredient in marijuana, but can be far more potent. There were 273 cases in February, 269 in March, but the number skyrocketed to just over 1,500 in April, according to the American Association of Poison Control Centers. This is referencing this year. So this is stuff that's coming back up again. I kind of saw this dip and die for a little bit. However, I am very, very close friends with a student assistance counselor the position of the fine young people that helped throw this on tonight. I'm very, very close associates with the student assistance counselor over at Mountain Lakes, and this particular product is flowing all over that school right now. So it's here. I can't even pronounce this. I'm going to apologize. The spelling's on the board for you. This product is out there. It is a synthetic cannabinoid. As you can see, it doesn't look like marijuana whatsoever. It might look more like a cocaine type product. But it's there. We're starting to see some kids with some negative effects on it. So I looked up what it actually looks like in its physical form, as well as the product as you can purchase it online. So it's hanging out. It's coming around. And so this is actually matching up with the news feeds that are popping up. So I don't know the particular effect. I can't tell you what this is presenting as. I just know that it's coming back up in the area. We already went over this. This is a couple of products for synthetic cannabinoids. So again, it looks like a marijuana-based product, but they are not. And just on the former slide with that benzofury that was on the right where it said not for human consumption, 18 years or older. So we have the 18 plus right here, not for human consumption. All of these products have this stuff all over it. It's the same exact thing. It's just a different chemical compound. Some of it's actually going to look like an herb of some kind. Some of it is going to look crystalline like cocaine or heroin.